Hello everybody, my name is Hope and welcome back to my channel. I like musicals, they're a big part of my life, and today we're going to be talking about musicals with misleading titles. Now what I mean by this is basically musicals that have titles that either don't really fit the show or tell you anything about the show at all, because they can easily be misconstrued or just generally about something that it's not. Now before we get into this video, I just want to tell you where you can find me on social media. So you can find me at xhopewilsonx on Instagram, at Hope Wilson with 2 N's and an underscore on Twitter, and Hope Wilson 45 on TikTok, where I do musical theatre content if you want to check it out. It's a bit of a series, but anyway, I think that's all I have to say for now, so without further ado, let's get into it. So my first show is Gypsy by Stein and Sondheim. So Gypsy is based off the memoirs of a striptease artist called Gypsy Rose Lee, hence where the name comes from, but generally I don't think a lot of people are gonna assume that it's about Gypsy Rose Lee, given that most people have probably never heard of her, and instead think it's about gypsies. Now I just want to say, if you're American, gypsy, as far as I'm aware, is not a slur, so there's that. I just thought I had to mention that. But I have no idea what the musical would consist of if it was about gypsies and travellers and stuff, but like, genuinely, I don't know what you would think, because I don't think my mind would go, Gypsy, this random striptease artist whom I've never heard of. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't think I would be assuming that it was about striptease artists, especially even the show itself. It doesn't come about that her name is Gypsy Rose Lee until I think Act 2 or like the very end of Act 1. So it's not even in like the majority of the first half. So number 2 is Spring Awakening by Chic and Sata. Now Spring Awakening is nothing to do with spring, like at all. It's to do with adolescent sexuality and the discovery of that. And I guess that's like kind of where the title comes from. Like obviously these people are young people, like spring, like, and are growing into adults, hence like forwarding of the seasons and their sexual awakening basically, and that's probably where the title comes from. This show is a very mature show, and I don't think that Spring Awakening is the most appropriate title for something of the sort. Now it's actually based on an 1891 play of the same name, so they've also got it from there. However, I just think that, like, I don't know, I just feel like it's a bit of a bizarre and kind of out there name for what the musical is actually about. Obviously you can't call it Sexual Awakening, that'd be a pretty terrible name for a musical and no one would want to come watch it. However, I feel like there's better names out there than Spring Awakening, which I think is, I don't even know if misleading is the right word, but I don't know, I think I hear Spring Awakening and I'm thinking of like sheep. Obviously you're not going to have a musical about sheep, but you get where I'm going, hopefully. Okay, number 3 is The Full Monty by Yazbek and McNally. So The Full Monty is a musical about workers that lose their jobs and basically turn to stripping to earn money, hence The Full Monty, which means like being totally nude, even though you never see people totally nude on stage because that would be kind of inappropriate. But this might just be a me thing, but every time I hear the word Monty, I think of Monty Python. Monty Python, for people who don't know, is like a comedy troupe which is made up of like, I want to say like 6-7 people, and basically they had a show, a television show in the UK. I feel like it's more global than just the UK, but I could be wrong. And that was called Monty Python, or Monty Python, however you want to pronounce it. Whenever I hear Monty, I always associate it with Monty Python. I feel like I'm kind of the minority though, because I feel like every time other people hear Monty, people from the UK that is, they'll just think of Monty Don, the TV gardener guy. I don't know why I mentioned that, I just thought it would be an interesting insight when it's really not. Anyway, Monty Python also have a musical, and I think that confuses me as well, because they have Monty Python's Spamalot, that is their musical, like they do actually have a musical. So that might be where I'm getting it from, but you know. I also think you could probably think this was something like Magic Mike kind of thing. I know Magic Mike doesn't have the title like, oh, it's about strippers, but it is about strippers. So I feel like you could think the same, like this is just a show about strippers, when it's really not. Well, it is, but it's not in the same vein as Magic Mike, so yeah. So my next one is Fun Home by Kron and Tesori. So Fun Home was adapted from a 2006 book of the same name by Alison Bechdel, who is also also the name of the main character in the show. And the title Fun Home comes from the main character's childhood, because it's her and her two brothers, and they name the family funeral parlour the Fun Home, because I'm guessing because of the irony and like the complete opposite of Fun Home, because people are dead, that kind of thing. And like this is precisely why I don't think this title fits at all, because the musical itself isn't really about them working at a funeral parlour. That's just kind of the name that was adopted from the book and the saying. The musical is about Alison, like our main character, growing up and realising that she's a lesbian, and then everything that goes on in her life, and just kind of being in funeral home for like some of it, it's kind of like a side thing. It's not really that important to the plot. So for me, I'm just like, if you're reading Fun Home, the title, even from like the cover art, it doesn't really tell you a lot. If anything, Fun Home is like the exact opposite of Fun Home. Like there's a lot of sad stuff that goes on in the show. It's not fun. Like the family dynamic is quite broken, so that's like the complete opposite. And there are a lot of mature themes in the show. I think it's great. I really do like Fun Home. I think it's very good. However, I don't think the title exactly fits what you would call it. I don't know. I don't write musicals. I've never written a musical. I've never needed to name a musical, so I don't know. But I don't know. I feel like Fun Home is an ironic title, but in that, it's misleading. My next musical is Dogfight by Pasek, Paul and Dushan. And I'm saying Dushan because it sounds fancy. It's probably just Dukan or something, but oh well. So Dogfight is based off a film, which I think came out in 1991. And Dogfight, I think, in this case, is in reference to dogfighting, as in like plane contact in the air, that fight, and then one of the planes blows up and that's who wins the dogfight, basically. But while this is about the army, this has nothing to do with the RAF. They are not RAF pilots like the main characters. So Eddie, who's our main character, and he has friends, Boland and Burnseed and other army people, basically. They are Marines. They are not RAF pilots, and the words dogfight are only used as a metaphor for men and women, the way men treat women, basically. But while Dogfight is about army people, it's not about Marines at all. And I guess the army theme is quite prominent. There's a lot of songs about it. The main plot, I guess the main plot still has army, but it has nothing to do with dogfighting. Like, dogfighting is totally irrelevant, and just in general, like, yeah, the title is just really irrelevant to the musical. Like, it has nothing to do with dogfighting. There's nothing plane related in the show. It's nothing to do with dogfighting. It is to do with the army, so I get it in that respect, and obviously they probably just got it from the film, which is the same name. But you know what I mean? It has no relevance. The title has absolutely no relevance to the show, as far as I can remember. My next show is The Frogs by Stephen Sondheim. A lot of people probably haven't heard of The Frogs, I gotta be honest. I only heard of it last year. I didn't know it before then. So, I don't know. I feel like when you hear The Frogs, you're probably thinking this is maybe a show directed towards younger people or something of the sort, because who's gonna have a musical about frogs? A musical for kids? But it's not for kids, actually. It's not for kids at all. And to be fair, frogs are relevant to the plot, but not in the way that you would think, because frogs are the villains of this show, and they're also metaphors for like other things. So The Frogs is really like kind of like a Greek mythology retelling. I'm not sure what the story is. It just sounds kind of Greek to me when I read like all the stuff about it. Yeah, the frogs are the villains. They're very scared of the frogs. The frogs are quite intimidating, so I get why it's called The Frogs. However, the main story is not about the frogs at all. It's about these two people going on a journey, and the frogs are just kind of in their way. It's not about the frogs. The frogs are not important. They're really not that important. So I don't know why it's called The Frogs. They could have called it something else, which would probably give you a better idea of it being this like mythological retelling in musical form. I think that would have made more sense. But I'm not Stephen Sondheim, so I can't really judge. Okay, my last one is Something Rotten by O'Farrell and Kirkpatrick. So I think unless you see the cover art for Something Rotten, you kind of have no idea what it's about. So this is the cover art. I think this gives you a much bigger insight into what the show is about. But if you're just going off the title alone, I think it's really hard to tell what this show is about. So if you couldn't tell, basically the show, it's set in like Shakespearean times, and it's about a guy that's writing the first musical, and he's kind of rivaling Shakespeare. Shakespeare's like this big cocky guy who thinks he's the best. Then we have Nick, who is like writing a musical to try and counteract all of his plays, basically. And I just think Something Rotten doesn't really like tell you a lot about what the show is about. I just don't think it does. Like, if you heard the musical Something Rotten, people might just take that as a review for this show. And it's not rotten at all. It's actually very good and very fun and upbeat and all these other things. So go check it out. But do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like if you hear the word Something Rotten, people aren't going to be very inclined to go and watch the show if they have only heard the title alone. Obviously from the cover art, it makes sense because they throw like rotten fruit at like people when they've done things wrong in those times. But yeah, very misleading, I think, because there's nothing rotten really about the show. So yeah. And that's it for this video. I don't know how long it is. Hopefully it's a reasonable length, but at the same time I have to edit it, and you know, it's going up. If you're watching it today, it was filmed earlier in the morning. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Remember, you can catch me at all my social medias, which I'll be right here. Subscribe if you feel like it. I'm really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so if you could do that, that would be great. But obviously you don't have to. I'm not forcing you to do anything. But thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you liked it. Keep enjoying musicals as much as me, and I'll see you next time.